Today on Laurice's Kitchen, we're making cinnamon rolls. Now these are not the cinnamon rolls that come from a can, and nor are they going to be the cinnamon rolls that come from a chain restaurant. These cinnamon rolls are going to be light and chewy and delicious, and you'll be able to control how much frosting goes on top. Now, you'll notice some similarities between this and the bread recipe from a few episodes ago, but let's go ahead and start with the differences. Alright, first off, we are going to be heating up milk instead of water with a little more than a half a cup of sugar, a teaspoon of kosher salt, and 1 stick of butter. We will also be adding a little bit of vital wheat gluten to our flour, about 2 tablespoons, and this will help make the finished rolls be nice and chewy, and we still won't have to use nearly as much flour. We're still going to put in about a tablespoon of instant yeast, and we'll start off with 2 cups of all-purpose flour in our bowl. We also will be adding 2 beaten eggs once we get our sponge together here. So let's go ahead and take this over to the stove and we'll start getting this butter melted. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and just pour in some milk. This is whole milk. You could use 2%. I really wouldn't go any lower than that. This is a 1 quart saucier, so you can see about how full I've got it. I'm going to guess that's a little over 2 cups of milk. Alright, right now we're going to go ahead and turn on this burner. And we're going to turn it kind of low and let this warm up the milk. Eventually I'll be stirring this, and then we're going to go ahead and we will just test it with our finger to check for the heat. We don't want this too hot because we don't want to kill our yeast, so somewhere between 120 and 130 would be a good temperature. Alright, you can see this butter is starting to melt just a little, so I'm going to check this because I really don't want it to get too hot. No, that's barely room temperature. Alright, so we'll let it go for a little bit longer. This has only been heating for about maybe 2 minutes, so you have to be pretty meticulous with it. Alright, let's check this again. Yes, that's plenty done. Alright, let's go ahead and turn off the heat on this. Alright, I'm going to mix this together a little bit because again, I don't want to pour this directly on my yeast. And then, so we don't make a mess, we're just going to stay right here and pour this in. Alright, like the bread, I'm going to mix this by hand until it's mixed up, and then we're going to put it on the mixer and let it go. Alright, that looks good. On the mixer it goes. Alright, this is starting to come together. We're going to go ahead and leave the mixer running and pour in our 2 eggs. This looks like it's getting pretty ropey. Take a look here. Yes, this looks great. Alright, so I'm going to scrape down the sides. And just like with our bread, I'm going to start off with an additional maybe 2 cups, probably a little more than 2 cups of flour in here, and we'll change over to the dough hook. And just like the bread, we want to use as little flour as possible for this so that we keep our rolls nice and light. So just put it in and let it stir. Alright, you can see this is sticking pretty good still, so we're going to go ahead and do about maybe 1/8 of a cup to 1/4 cup of flour. Just let it keep going. Another, about 1/8 of a cup. Okay, this is starting to stand up a little bit. Now I want to give this a check to see where we are stickiness wise. So I'm going to press my finger to it. Okay, that is still very, very sticky. Almost my entire finger is covered, so we need to continue to keep going. Okay, so about another 1/8 of a cup. This might be the last 1/8 though. Alright. You can see this is starting to climb up the dough hook. So we want this to be a little bit stickier, and we still need to get it together. So unlike our bread, we are going to put a little bit of flour down on the granite when we pour this out. All right, now we don't want to add too much flour to this dough, but we do want to get it into shape. This is very soft, and this would stick to my hands terribly and the granite if I didn't have this flour on here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get this into a ball shape. And then I'm going to put it in a greased bowl, and we're going to let it rise for about, maybe about an hour. And then I'm going to go ahead and put this back in my oven, even though it's still plenty warm. I'm not going to add any hot water or anything to this. I just don't want the cats to get in my dough. Alright, it's been about 45 minutes since I put this in the oven, and you can see it's risen considerably. So we're going to go ahead and punch this down. Need it to redistribute the air bubbles, and ignore the dogs in the background. All right, this is going to make 24 cinnamon rolls, but first we've got to get this dough cut in half because we're going to shape them 12 at a time. All right. Now we want to roll this dough out so that it's a long rectangle. Okay, these are cinnamon rolls, so we're going to brush this dough with a little bit of softened butter. We want to brush down to one end and all the way over to the other, but we want to leave about an inch on the top here where we don't have any butter so that our dough will seal back over. All right, and then this is cinnamon and sugar, and I'm just going to sprinkle this on here. All right, and then we're going to start rolling this up. All right, now we do want to take off the ends, and I know a lot of recipes will have you using dental floss. Really, the easiest way to do this is just a serrated bread knife. So we're going to cut off the ends because they're not going to cook properly. They're going to just be all dough and no cinnamon. All right, we want this in 12 even parts. So we're going to cut it in half. Then we're going to cut one of these in half, and then we're going to go in thirds, and we're just going to keep doing that. All right, I am putting all of this on a half sheet cake. All 24 are going to go on here. So my first 12 will go on this end, second 12 will go on the next end. All right, on to the next load. All right, then back into the oven for another rise. All right, these have been rising for about, maybe about 35, 40 minutes. We're going to go ahead and take them out, set them off to the side, and I am going to get my oven going. Now, 375 is what you want to bake these at. We're going to start the timer off for 18 minutes, and then we're going to check them at 18 minutes. We don't want them to get over brown, but we also don't want them to be completely underdone. Okay, while we're waiting for our oven to heat up, we're going to make our frosting. Now, this frosting is very easy. You need a little bit of softened butter. This is probably about a half a stick. I mean, I never measure anything. We're going to need some powdered sugar and just a tiny bit of cream. So we're just going to dump in some powdered sugar. It's probably about maybe a cup and a half, 2 cups. And we're just going to mix this up until it kind of resembles coarse peas or whatever, basically like you would do with a pie crust. All right, this looks pretty good. Okay, now we're going to add just a tiny bit of cream, and we're going to add hardly any, and if we need to add more, we will, but we're gonna start with maybe a tablespoon. It's about a tablespoon, that's all I put in there. I'm gonna stir this around. Okay, I want just a tiny bit more. Okay, that was about a teaspoon. And that's gonna be plenty. All right, if you don't put the cream in here, this is not going to melt properly once you put it on your hot cinnamon rolls. So this is the consistency that we want for our frosting. Okay. All right. All right, my stove is heated up, so we're gonna go ahead and put these in. And I'm gonna set the timer for 18 minutes. Okay, these are done and they look beautiful. Let's get these out on the top of the stove. All right, and while they're hot, we have to go ahead and ice them. So I'm just using a little offset spatula here. I don't like a terrible amount of frosting, but I do like some on there. Okay, now like all bread, we cannot eat this right now. It is way too hot. So we're going to give this at least a half an hour to cool down, and then we're going to go ahead and taste it. Okay, let's get ready to taste this.